life had always seemed ordinary for Martha. She lived in a small town with her husband Alexei and their young son Maxim. Each day passed like the last, routine, predictable, and filled with the quiet joys of family life. Their home was cozy, the kind of place where a mother could watch her child grow up, and a wife could feel secure in the love of her husband. But no one can anticipate the moment when everything they know comes crashing down. And for Martha, that moment arrived with a simple, devastating sentence: "I don't want to live with you anymore." It happened on an ordinary morning, just after breakfast. Alexei, who had seemed distant for weeks, looked at Martha with a certain coldness in his eyes that she couldn't quite place. He sat her down and spoke the words that no wife ever expects to hear. "I've thought about it for a long time," he said, his voice strangely calm. "I don't want this life anymore. I don't want to live with you or stay with Maxim. I'm leaving." Martha's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't understand what had gone wrong. Hadn't everything seemed fine just a few months ago? There were no warning signs, no fights, no arguments. Yet here Alexei was, telling her that he was walking away from their life together. It wasn't just the words that devastated Martha. It was the way Alexei said them. He showed no remorse, no sign of struggle or doubt. It was as if he had already made peace with his decision and was simply informing her of it. "Take your things and leave," he added coldly, pushing her out of their shared home with no explanation and no real goodbye. Martha was paralyzed with shock. She could hardly comprehend the reality of what was happening. The man she had loved, the father of her child, had just thrown them aside without any consideration. As Alexei walked out the door, Martha was left standing in their empty house with nothing but the echoes of his words ringing in her ears. She was not just heartbroken. She was abandoned, and she had no idea what to do next. For the first few days, Martha was lost in a haze of confusion and pain. Her mind was clouded with questions she couldn't answer. Why? What had gone wrong? What was she supposed to do now? She had never expected her life to take such an abrupt turn. She had always believed that their small family would stay intact, that they would grow together and face whatever challenges life threw at them. But Alexei's departure shattered that belief. Despite her emotional turmoil, Martha knew she had to act. She had to take care of her son, who was just a little boy at the time, barely old enough to understand what was happening, but still aware that something was wrong. With no family nearby to turn to, Martha had no choice but to find a way to move forward on her own. She gathered what little she had left and moved into a modest apartment. It wasn't much, but it was a roof over her and Maxim's heads, and for the time being, that was all she needed. The first months were the hardest. Martha juggled the responsibilities of motherhood with the stress of trying to find a job. She had always been a stay-at-home mom, focusing on caring for Maxim while Alexei worked. Now, she was faced with the daunting task of providing for them both. It wasn't easy. The job market was tough, and Martha wasn't sure where to begin. She applied to every position she could find, hoping for something that would give her a sense of stability. In the meantime, she spent her days caring for Maxim, making sure he felt loved and safe. Despite the chaos of their new life, she tried to create moments of joy for her son. She would take him to the park, read stories to him at night, and make small treats to surprise him. Even in their small apartment, they found ways to make their home feel warm and inviting. Martha couldn't let the weight of her grief steal her joy, not when her son depended on her to be strong. Months passed, and slowly, Martha began to find her footing. She got a job at a local kindergarten, which, though not glamorous, allowed her to support herself and Maxim. She started to enjoy her work, teaching young children, helping them discover the world around them, and nurturing their growth. It wasn't the career she had once envisioned, but it was a good one. It paid the bills, and it gave her a sense of purpose that had been missing for a long time. Through it all, Martha became more confident and independent. She had no choice but to take charge of her own life and the life of her son. She didn't need Alexei anymore. She had learned that, although she had once relied on him, she was capable of standing on her own 2 feet. Over time, Martha began to embrace her new life. It wasn't easy, but it was hers, and that gave her a sense of strength and pride. Maxim, too, adapted to their new life. He grew more resilient with each passing day, and Martha could see how much he had changed. He had always been a sweet and kind child, but now he